this is just coming on. The way that I understand it is that some lady a few years after 9/11 occurred set up a booth for people to walk in and record themselves voluntarily towards their experience of what they seen, what they heard, what they felt during 9/11. And if I'm not mistaken, just a few years ago, she opened up the same booth, basically in the same spot, or maybe it wasn't in the same spot, and gave them same people the same opportunity of walking back in and expressing what had happened, how they felt, how it affected their lives. And I've really thought about this for the past day since I seen that it was going to come on tonight. And the only thing that I can even come close of comparing it to, of course, the vast majority of the people are dead now that went through the Holocaust. But those people that lived through what they lived through, experienced what they experienced, it had to affect their lives profoundly. Similar towards how that 9/11 affected these people's lives that was there at ground zero whenever all this occurred, whenever all this broke out. Now keep in mind, to the civilian population, we're not supposed to experience, see, taste, hear, or be a part of warfare. On either this side of the pond or the other. But because of surrounding circumstances and because of evil demonic people, it has pressed good people of having to go through bad situations, bad things. You know, it wasn't the innocent lives' fault over in Japan whenever the two atom bombs went off, but because of everything that was unfolding the way that it was unfolding, I can see now through the eyes of our ancestryhood here in America that if they didn't do that, today we as an Americans would probably be speaking German and saluting our authority figures as in Heil Hitler. The evil that has been unleashed up into society today during and from this moment of 9/11 is similar towards what had occurred during the risation of the Aryanhood of Nazism that basically wanted to come over here to America in the 30s and conform, rehabilitate us into that type of ideology. That way there would be Nazi sympathizers that would tolerate the existence of an evil, brutal dictator by the name of Hitler. That is and was your second type form of Antichrist. The third Antichrist, our form of Antichrist, is still living to this day, that has brought this misery and sorrow not just into the existence of America towards experiencing this type of terrorism, but now these poisonous tentacles have basically went all over the planet. That basically the Saudi Arabians was the ones that fumigated it. You have to ask yourself the simple question pertaining to Islam, pertaining to those that have been brainwashed into this type of ideology under the Sharia law. Why has it taken so long for their existence to become so predominant over here in America? Well, if you put your thinking cap on, it didn't just begin with 9/11. You can go all the way back to Muhammad Ali that wound up converting over to the same type of ideology. And there's been other people that has done similar things, that has preached their ideology over here in America, hoping that we would be sympathizers to this evil demonic movement that has now poisoned not only the American lives, but the world. Why should the civilian population on either side of the pond have to experience such horrors as the people during 9/11? I'm going to tell you why. It's simple. Satan is still at large. The Antichrist has not been put away. Evil still exists towards wanting to dominate good. And evil is still lurking towards trying to dominate society under any formal pretense that it may or can get its hands on. That's the reason why Jesus said that this entity, this evil entity, was a liar and a murderer from the beginning. This is not the first time that the Christian society has been under attack. You can go all the way back to Father Abraham, whenever various things was going on in the Christian society back then, because of this evil, dark entity that wanted to override, overthrow, corrupt, dictate, and dominate society. So as you're watching this particular program, remember that there are people such as myself that has been able to look through this smokescreen in understanding not only what has happened in the past, but also what usually repeats itself in the present towards steering into the future. And until we eradicate this evil that is upon this planet, working through either the Taliban or the ISIS or any other type of known or unknown terrorist groups, until we abolish this type of evil will still be lurking. It will still be persistent in trying to tear, destroy, dominate the true, good Christian society all over this planet. So if you would please listen to this, watch this with an open mind, in honor, in remembrance of those that died in this evil demonic occurrence, simply because of evil that was a murderer and a liar from the beginning. Thank you.
Because I'm not ready. I mean, it's the worst thing I've ever seen. And it's the worst thing I hope to see.
You keep in mind, this is the little room that she set up for people to go in there and basically unwind or get basically whatever was on their chest off. But you keep in mind this, as you're watching this, pertaining to the innocent civilians that was damaged and hurt that day. Whenever a military soldier, it doesn't matter what brand, what rank and file that he or she may be, they have chosen their career or their lifestyle on a voluntary level most of the time, unless there's a major conflict and we have to engage in a draft system. But you keep in mind that these people that are subservient to the military towards basically being missionaries, they have chosen this upon to themselves, and they know the consequences from a military perspective towards what could occur in and during the exchange of them serving under these authority figures. The people that was subject to this type of cruelty the day of 9/11 did not ask for any of this. And I'm going to paraphrase myself in this towards, I didn't ask for various authority figures to try to come at me and wanting to destroy the founder of the Windmill Ministries' lives simply because I had been chosen or picked or selected by God of doing a certain particular task towards being a messenger and getting this message out to the general public. But you know, it has come into my lap too as well, of event after event after event, going all the way back to childhood, whenever I was raised up with basically a World War II drill sergeant that was in ways a lunatic, but in other ways a genius, an oxymoron, bittersweet. One minute he loves you and the next minute he's trying to kill you. I have been subject to not only that experience again and again and again towards growing up in the abusiveness as childhood as well as my family, but all the other entanglements that has happened in my life towards injuries that I know Satan was in behind towards trying to destroy my life, regardless whether it was physically, emotionally, psychologically, or spiritually. I know the depths of my enemy towards how far that this evil entity will go towards trying to come out on top. And every time it has done this, going back before the Pharaohs of Moses, it has lost. It has not succeeded, and it will not succeed this time neither as well. It will lose. It is a loser. It has been a loser from the get-go, just as Jesus said that it was a liar and a murderer from the get-go. And I guess if we're to learn anything about all these things that has occurred from a broad perspective, is that we as a society will in fact be part of the jury that will cast our votes towards the ending of the existence of this living, breathing entity, this dark force that one day will be cast into a pit of hell along with the false prophet and those that follow after it will be tormented, and their existence will no longer have any type of influence upon to this galaxy or upon to society. We will be part of that jury because of the suffering and the pain that we have personally went through down here, because we know that it was not done by our Heavenly Father. We know that it was done through the dark forces that has brought this type of illegitimacy into these people's lives, going now 20 years ago.
For years, it was too hard to even see a picture of, that image that was like everywhere. I mean, just the idea of going back and trying to process all of that honestly felt impossible. But then I went to the memorial. The way that the water moves. All of those names around it. It's just a transformative experience. I was then like so much more at peace with sharing my feelings with my kids. And they hear stories about her all the time. I don't know, I wonder if it will help them one day, like when they lose somebody who they love, they will be able to remember that, like, I had a friend who I loved and I lost. And it's okay to be sad. It's okay to grieve. Because you can also live your life and you can love your life and you can be happy too.
Absolutely.
Mary Adams, and today is April 30th, 2021. It wasn't easy for me to mourn my brother. I wasn't good at it. And so I remember walking back into work, probably about 2 weeks later. I'm a social worker by trade for girls that couldn't live at home. And gradually throughout the day, one by one, would come in and check in, say hello, maybe give me a hug, nod at me. For these girls, a brother being randomly killed on a beautiful Tuesday wasn't unusual. Many of them had lost brothers, siblings, cousins, parents. They got it. They understood. They knew I wasn't fixed or healed in 2 weeks' time. They knew where I was. And in turn, they showed me a path. They did get up and go to school. They had some rough times. They had a lot of joy. And so I learned that you're never going to get just all joy and all laughter. And so we have to accept the heartache and find a way to integrate it and live with it and still move forward. He's still really in my heart. And he always will be. I ride my bike every day to work by Ground Zero and always rub my heart. Now, I don't hate watching that video bringing me back to so close to 2001. Feels almost good. Feels as if I'm just closer to Charlie. Almost as if he could be right there. Perfect, thank you.
It was heartbreaking, absolutely heartbreaking. I mean, thinking about the people that died, and there's, it just stayed with me. Um, uh, in particular, the people jumping from the building.
My name is Donald Bird. I'm a choreographer living here in New York City.
I made a dance that was kind of directly related to how I felt. And not just that it haunted me, but also this idea of those people being at peace. Once I was able to get that out, the kind of work that I did changed. I started to think about my artistic purpose differently. I started making work that kind of addressed issues of social justice, race. I mean, it could no longer be for me. It needed to be of service to the community, and that's what I wanted to do. And that was a direct result, I think, of what happened on 9/11, which was a kind of eye-opener about how I wanted to live. And I think now I live in a space that's not about despair, it's about hope.
There are moments when I cannot believe I'm alive. I touch my skin just to feel my blood flow. I don't think that, some days I just don't think that I made it. After the 9/11 attacks and I went home, everything really settled in. I was in shock. I mean, the first 2 years were really rough for me. I just suffer survivor's guilt. At the beginning, really, really, really bad. I saw a lot of people die, and I saw a lot of people jump, and I saw a lot. For a long time, I struggled with my purpose. I mean, I was mentally messed up in the head. Why did God leave me?
A few weeks ago, some New Yorkers put together a photography exhibit. They asked people to send in a picture they had taken on September 11th.
There was this art gallery called Here is New York, Democracy of Photographs. I remember standing outside the art gallery with my friend Dominique, my co-worker, and it started to snow out. We were drinking hot chocolate, and we're looking at the TV screen, showing the photos that were inside.
Every wall of the store, even the ceilings, are lined with pictures. Hundreds and hundreds of pictures. Many of them are too powerful to explain, even for the people who were there.
And I said, oh my God, Dominique, that's us. When I found that picture, it actually changed my life. It just gave me a lot of closure. That's the word I'm looking for. It gave me a lot of closure, and I was able to move on with my life because it just made me feel better.
I'm going to weigh in on what my heart is feeling right now. Whenever a person has went through a trauma, doesn't matter if it's a car wreck, doesn't matter if he or she's in battle, doesn't matter if somebody shoots somebody and you get shot, there's so much there that you lose. You lose the foundation of time. You lose the foundation of the moment that existed during the time that you had to go through what you had to go through. Because of modern day technology pertaining to cameras and etc., we now have the privilege of a society that, let's say during the Civil War era here in America, did not have that privilege to be able to reflect, to go back, to understand what you not only look like, but what you had to feel like, what you had to experience during the time that you experienced that type of trauma. And be it as it may, it is to a lot of people a sense of healing, to be able to have the opportunity, and I'm sure that's what she was talking about, towards being grateful that somebody had taken that picture and put it on the wall, and now she not only identified that it was her, but now all them emotions, all them feelings come back. But now as they come back, there was a sense of relief because the healing had done already taken place after 20 plus years. The experiences that the Civil War here in America had to go through was just as horrifying as what these people experienced. That was one of the reasons why that it was so imperative for the soldiers, the men primarily, in that era, that if anything ever occurred towards them dying, they wanted to be sure that a letter that most kept in or on their coat, on their body somewhere or another. That way somebody would have the decency of sending a letter back home and telling uncle and aunt and mama and papa and papa where they had laid to rest pertaining to the last breath that they had taken. The human characteristics of today has not changed towards how we feel, not only about each other, but how we feel about ourselves. And to be able to reflect gives a sense of purpose. It's like, wow, I made it through that barrier. I made it through that conflict. I made it through that horrible, horrible time that I went through. The Homo sapien race is very, very resilient when it comes to how tough that they truly are and what that they can actually go through. And it's only by the hand of God that can re-heal, re-mold, retouch, re-stabilize an individual's life to the point that he or she can go on about their lives and try to live out their lives in a productive and yes, purposeful way.
Derek Tischler, he's part of my history. He caught me at the worst moment of my life, but that worst moment of my life brought me to the best moments of my life.
A sense of purpose.
Losing a spouse was a horrible place to be. I mean, when I opened that booth door, it was almost literally looking out into darkness and wondering what was coming next. I Didn't know. I didn't know how things were going to shake out. We moved to Shepherdstown, West Virginia. I wanted to get the kids out of DC because I was afraid that there could be another attack. I lived in pretty constant fear of that. So we'd been there about a month, and I was trying to be a full-time dad. I thought the kids needed that. But obviously, it was not always easy. Then one day, I was cleaning out the family car. I apparently didn't do that very often because I found a little notepad under one of the seats, and it was Shelley's notepad, and it had a bunch of, grocery lists, things like that, but it also had some words that she wrote down, and they were, "We have only a finite number of days on this earth. Make them extraordinary and fill them with passion." And I have sort of taken that as my guidance from her.
How long did it take, people?
To approach life with purpose and make a positive difference.
We saw soldier.
I remember the school in Shepherdstown had this excellent kindergarten teacher, but it just so happened, her name was Mrs. Ahmed. She was a Muslim woman. There were two kindergarten teachers, and there was nothing wrong with the other one, but I told the principal, I said, I would really like the kids to go through Miss Ahmed's class, because all their life they're going to hear that Muslims killed their mother. And that's just not true. There were these inhuman scum killed their mother. They hijacked a religion to do it. So the principal agreed, and the kids both went through Miss Ahmed's kindergarten.
Then I had to clap like this.
And now we've got, one graduating from Harvard. We've got another one going to law school. So bravo, Miss Ahmed. And bravo, Shelley. I mean, she's a remarkable woman, and everything that's happened since 9/11 has worn her touch one way or another.
My name is AJ Devine, and I'm in the Navy Reserves. So now the issue is, am I going to be called up to fight or not?
The question from my wife is, what do you mean you have to go to Afghanistan for a year? That doesn't make any sense. You're 43 years old. It was in early 2012 when I finally shipped over. I absolutely went with the preconceived notion that I was going to be hated. I was going to be maybe under a great deal of danger all the time because they don't like Americans and they don't like Christians.
U.S.-Afghan relations are at a low point in an already difficult relationship, one that relies on cooperation. In this incident,
and so my whole philosophy was, okay, I'm just going to do the absolute minimum, keep myself out of harm's way, and just work. But that meant having to travel outside of the base, outside of protection, on our own, just with our weapons and our flak jackets and our helmet and our gear, and travel 2 miles through Kabul city streets to get to the Ministry of the Defense, where the Afghan Air Force were based. So I come into the morning with extraordinary anxiety. All right, let's get to work. Let's start working on these numbers and maintenance numbers and how are we going to get these aircraft up and flying? And they would be like, slow down, take it easy. How's your family doing? How's your kids? Are they healthy? You know, I'm like, yeah, they're healthy. But let's get to work. Slow down. And we would not get any work done until we talked about each other's families. And I started learning that. Thought that was cool. That's not something that we all love our families, but they make a certain emphasis on it. Regardless of whether we should have been in Afghanistan or we shouldn't have been in Afghanistan, we had a personal connection with each other. And I started realizing our common humanness. That, hey, we're not so different from each other. I mean, I became so immersed in it that I changed my complete perspective. I was like, I am not leaving here without having done something positive and something good. And because I felt like I'm working for my brothers. And I could tell they felt the same way about me.
When I sit back and I reflect on the reality that 20 years ago, someone actually tried to murder me, I could be very bitter about that. I had burns to my face, second-degree burns to my face. I had second and third-degree burns to my hands and to the backs of my arms. But just as Christ forgave me, I also have to forgive the people who carried out the act. I have granddaughters, and I had to make sure that I didn't let that bitter root grow in me. I don't want them growing up with prejudice and bitterness and hatred. You know, I don't want them saying, oh, well, this group of people tried to kill my grandmother, so I don't like them. That is not showing unconditional love.
Okay, so if you want to just point to it again.
I don't know if this will be, if you'll use this or not, but God has an awesome sense of humor because our oldest son's wife is from Egypt and she was raised Muslim. It's like, how would it be? You know, how would I be if I held that in my heart? And here my son brings home this woman who he says he loves and he wants to marry, and I'm like, well, no, you can't marry her because she's one of them. Well, no, I'm gonna hug her and love her and embrace her, and then they're about to give us our first grandson. It's awesome.
Are we recording, right? All we can do now is try to correct the wrong thinking of people so that future things like this do not happen. Because of 9/11, American public was so concerned and fearful about Islam and Muslims and Al-Qaeda and, you know, the enemy from within, that I, as an architectural designer, had to step up. I wanted to be part of the renewal of healing America, healing my faith. And so about 10 years ago, we proposed a community center. It was called the Islamic Community Cultural Center in Lower Manhattan. A beautiful place that would be for all. But then people began to attack us.
I think it's just a spit in our face. I think they're laughing at us.
And it really hurt me when they said,
Not you, not now, and not here.
I want to say something else. You know, they're right pertaining to the Muslims that not all Muslims are bad people. But at the same time, not all Muslims, especially those that are so grounded and brainwashed into the Sharia law over in the Middle East, especially in the Saudi Arabia area, are not all good people neither. But now I can say the exact same thing about the Americans, that not all Baptists are bad and not all Baptists is good. So this is what has made this 20-year war pertaining to the Sharia law so complex, so dirty, so disgusting, that we actually couldn't tell the difference between who was for us and who was against us. And it becomes so complex because we didn't cut off the resources like our ancestors did whenever they was attacked in Pearl Harbor, towards shutting down everything until we figured out where our footing was. Because we didn't do that, I believe that it has extended the healing process as well as the grief in understanding that this is not over with yet. In other words, we haven't done a full circle towards reconciling where the initial problem began, where the core of origin began. And there's no doubt the Taliban are some cruel, evil, disheartened people that go under that same religion, or that, as the man was saying a while ago, basically hijacked a religion to do this, an occult. But because that it's now spread out all over the world, it has made it a billion times harder to pinpoint just exactly where the problem initiated to begin with, where the core of origin was to begin with. And I still believe to this day that if things would have been handled properly before Desert Storm and before Desert Shield, in identifying that yes, Saddam Hussein was a ruthless individual, but at the same time we didn't look at the dynamics of taking a leader like that out and now left a vacuum for more terrorists to come and inundate that whole area. The same way now that we're basically looking at towards Afghanistan, that will leave a vacuum for more terrorists to come and reside in. So until we truly understand what we're up against pertaining to this spiritual warfare, we're not never really going to be able to put our thumb on it towards just exactly what's going on. And I thank God that God has given me the intelligence and the interpretation towards understanding about these things that has occurred, is occurring, and in the future contents will occur. Because if it wasn't for God in giving me the gift of knowledge of knowing what was going on, I wouldn't be able to sit here right now and make these recordings on digital to be able to explain it to other people so that maybe that they can understand the things that I understand. Has it been complex? Yes. Has it been hard? Yes. It's been one of the most difficult things to decipher through that I think that I've ever had to wrap my head around. But I still believe that because things was not engineered and pursued in the proper form, during the latter part of Ronald Reagan's era, that now it has led us down this crooked, snaky, bumpy path of one of the longest wars that America history has ever been involved in. And as far as getting the bang for the buck, we never could really convince the rest of the superpowers pertaining to the rest of the nations toward just exactly what we was up against here. And I guess it has taken this type of imagery. It has taken this type of resentment for the rest of the world to open up their eyes and understand that any type of organization or religion that does not preach and teach the things of the Lord Jesus Christ is basically an occult. I don't care if it's Hinduism, Buddhism, Muslim, any of the above. Now they'll use the format by saying, well, Jesus has got many names, God's Son's got many names, in which he does, and we just use the name of Allah instead of the name of Jesus. Well, to some extent I believe that, and did believe that at one time. But whenever you sit and watch how rootless that religion is over there, and how that they want to put on suicide bombs and blow one another up and cause so much harm and hurt, which is just the very opposite of what Jesus taught towards being wise as serpents and harmless as doves, you understand that what they're actually doing is nothing more than a fake facade. It's nothing more than what Christ said, that they would come in sheep's clothing, but inwardly they would be nothing more than raging wolves. They're imposters. They're reptilians walking around trying to image themselves as being decent and good, civilized people, but in reality they're barbarians. Now I realize a lot